I've not been around on YouTube long enough to make this point as consistently or as eloquently as other content creators, but hopefully I've been pretty unequivocal about my feelings looking forward to the next 6 months. We are going to see a gaming revolution between now and the end of next spring. A true renaissance that will redefine both the fundamentals of the open world RPG as well as the methods by which we as players interact with those open worlds. We're all standing at the base of a very unfamiliar yet infinitely inviting landscape, one that beckons us with the promise of vast new experiences in immersive entertainment. One small corner of that landscape is a bombed-out post-apocalyptic hellscape full of mouthy New Englanders and 10-foot machine gun-wielding mutants. And while that description may sound scary to you, to me, it sounds like the perfect place for a new and unexplored technology. Fallout 4 is close, my friends, achingly close. It's Bethesda's follow-up to the first game they ever made in response to those who claimed they couldn't make money outside of their own major IP. And it's going to be monumental in size and scope. The sales of Skyrim have funded a behemoth of a title so massive it will fuel role-playing gamers for the next decade, especially once we consider the deluge of hungry modders eager to bust down the gates and get to churning out content for us all to share. It's almost overwhelming. Look at what Skyrim has done to us. Is there no greater spoiled class of gamers than RPG enthusiasts? Bethesda has taught us that we can have, quite literally, anything we want in our games, provided we're willing to put up with a few bugs here and there. Now here we are, at the end of 2015, being told to get ready. We're about to have that fun all over again. But things are different this time around, and the changes are coming at us from a direction no one could have predicted back in 2011. Bethesda's games have always been about immersing the player in a meticulously crafted world, a world that simultaneously lives and breathes and responds to you living and breathing within it. There's a reason that the gaming press refers to these titles as generational. A player might grow up as much in the capital wasteland as they do in the real world. By the time a new game is released, they could be a totally different person. They may not even play games anymore. But those who do still play are always looking for new and creative layers that add to that immersion. Software mods fill the gaps to a certain degree, but when it comes to hardware solutions, triple monitors aren't really cutting it anymore. Not when we have these on the horizon. The HTC Vive and Oculus Rift will both see consumer release by the time we roll into next summer. But early adopters of VR tech have already been enjoying virtual reality in all its glory through Oculus's development kits. Those of us who've tried this stuff are, by and large, convinced that VR is the next evolution in how we as human beings will experience entertainment. We've even got people like this guy on board.
That's why this is so exciting. Every 10 or 15 years, there is a new major platform that comes along. I do think virtual reality is going to do that with augmented reality.
There's just no two ways about it. Virtual reality may be young, and like a Bethesda game, its potential may be buggy and not fully realized, but it's something you simply have to see to believe. It is that incredible, and we've not even cracked the surface yet. Now, up to this point, the best VR titles have taken the shape of insular, closed-off experiences. We've learned that first-person control schemes are tough in virtual reality. Top-down and isometric games and demos have surprised us and made us reevaluate their place in this new frontier. And above all, it's been a tough task to shoehorn modern RPGs and open-world games into the Oculus Rift DK2. Now, I jumped for joy when I first learned I could play GTA 5 in the Rift. Then I tried it, and I began to understand what kind of work it was going to take to modify the game to get it to a playable state. I had similar experiences with other first-person titles. My thoughts returned to one connecting thread. For a game to be successfully adapted to a brand new technology, it's going to need an army of dedicated developers to work on making it happen. And who is more motivated to make their games work for them than the fans that love and play them every single day? Fallout 4 has that manpower from day one to be the game that changes how we experience RPGs. And it has two brand new consumer VR ecosystems rushing up to meet it very soon. Now, anyone with basic knowledge of the DK2 knows that there are two programs that adapt non-VR games to work in virtual reality. Perception is a free-to-use software that covers titles released through DirectX 9, though support for DX11 is coming soon, and Vorpex is a $40 application that includes DirectX 11 support right out of the box. Now, these applications work by using similar mechanisms, primarily driver injection, to force the game to recognize the DK2 and tracking camera as a control interface. Results vary from game to game. Sometimes it works beautifully, at other times it's a total mess. But there are a few titles where it feels like the game was always meant to be played in VR. For instance, I've spent hours playing BioShock 2 in my DK2. The experience of actually walking around Rapture, of feeling the water as it splatters over my helmet visor and slides down my character's body, is nothing short of revelatory. For Fallout 4 to work in virtual reality, it will require great efforts from the developers of both of these applications to ensure that the game not only plays, but that it plays well, with appropriate head tracking, field of view, world scaling, and all other facets that work towards making a VR game comfortable to play. It may also involve individual modders tweaking those files and packaging them into something even more accessible, something that can be downloaded by users on an individual basis. Most importantly, it will require VR enthusiasts providing continued support over the life of the game, or at least until the technology becomes so prevalent in consumer households that Bethesda has no choice but to mod support in themselves. There is a totally reasonable expectation to believe that this could happen, especially given the long lifespan of Bethesda's major releases. Picture it like this. We start out with basic support for the DK2 through Perception and Vorpex soon after the game releases. This continues for a month or two until the HTC Vive is released in December, which is the rumored time frame that will see the first consumer device on the market. The Vive, with its room scale tracking, opens up even more potential. Now, instead of experiencing the game in a seated position, you're walking around the Commonwealth. Modders begin to develop locomotion systems that enable you to walk long distances, or teleport you to where your controller is pointing. A few months later, Oculus releases the Rift, so now we have two consumer headsets for modders to adapt this game into. People are starting to come up with solutions that incorporate hand tracking. We're now able to manipulate the HUD with gesture control. We can play games on the Pip-Boy as if it was attached to our wrist in real life. Guns are holstered and reloaded by making the corresponding motions with our arms. Every facet of Bethesda's open world monster of a game, the game they spent 7 years and millions of man-hours developing, is now controlled through some form of virtual input. Before you know it, you're placing an order for an omnidirectional treadmill that literally lets you run through Fenway Park. And then you realize that the game has only been out for a year. If you think I'm getting carried away, you're probably right. It takes a lot of work and many leaps of faith to get to the scenario I've just described. But the larger point that I'm trying to make lies in the possibility of these circumstances. Fallout 4 is coming out on November 10th. Virtual reality will be in the hands of consumers by this time next year. The seeds have already been planted and watered, and the tide of progress is not likely to be pushed back. If anything, it often takes a major release like Fallout 4 to give the right community a chance to coalesce around an idea and do something great. Skyrim taught us all that the rules governing an RPG's content can be broken. Fallout 4 will teach a much larger lesson, that we can break the rules governing how we interact with virtual worlds. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong, and it will take the talents of those much smarter and well-connected than I am to tell me that we'll have to wait a little longer. Let the technology grow and mature a little bit more before we see the first true bombs going off in the virtual reality industry. I just have a funny feeling about these generational games. They tend to teach us something not only about the company that made them, but also about the entire culture that plays and enjoys them. And it seems like we're all due for a real eye-opening moment. I'm betting that we have many of those moments with our eyes firmly secured behind some brand new technology. Thanks for watching Gameplays U, everyone. If you like this video, please let me know by clicking on this little guy. And if you think you'd like to see more of what I have to offer, I would love to have you subscribe to my channel. I've got a lot planned for this, guys. Fallout 4 and virtual reality are huge on my agenda, whether or not they end up overlapping each other. So if you're a fan of either, stick around. I've got lots to show you. Take care, everyone, and I advise that you brace for the future, like now.